Have you ever sent a message, watched it get delivered, and then waited 5 minutes, an hour, a day? You check your phone, again, still nothing. Then somehow you see that same person posting on social media, laughing in their stories, replying to someone else. And suddenly, one simple question starts echoing in your mind. Why are they ignoring me? Most people think being ignored is about them. But psychology tells a much more complicated story. Sometimes silence is rejection. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's power. And sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden psychology behind people who ignore others. And by the end of this video, you may never take silence personally again, because the loudest message someone can send is often no message at all. Imagine two people both send a text that says, "Hey, can we talk?" The first person gets a reply in 2 minutes. The second person waits 3 days. Same message, different response. Why? Most of us immediately create a story. They don't respect me. They must hate me. I did something wrong. But here's the strange thing about the human brain. When information is missing, it doesn't stay empty. It fills in the blanks. Psychologists call this the brain's need for closure. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable, so your mind creates an explanation, even if it's completely wrong. That's why silence hurts so much. It's not just the lack of words, it's the endless possibilities your imagination creates. And most of these possibilities are negative. Now, here's something even more surprising. Research in psychology has shown that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. Think about that. Your brain literally treats being ignored as if you've been injured. That's why your stomach feels heavy. That's why your chest feels tight. That's why you replay every conversation over and over again. Your brain isn't being dramatic. It's trying to protect you from losing social connection, something humans have depended on for survival for thousands of years. But here's where things become interesting. Not everyone ignores people for the same reason. In fact, there are several hidden psychological patterns behind silence. The first one is emotional overload. Picture someone whose phone has 50 unread messages, work deadlines, family problems, bills, stress. Now your message arrives. It isn't ignored because it doesn't matter. It's ignored because their mental bandwidth has already reached its limit. Have you ever opened a message, thought, "I'll reply later," and then completely forgotten? Almost everyone has. Silence isn't always intentional. Sometimes it's simply cognitive overload. The second reason is avoidance. Some people don't know how to say difficult things. Instead of saying, "I'm upset, I'm disappointed, I don't want to continue this friendship," they disappear. Why? Because conflict creates anxiety. Ignoring someone becomes easier than having an uncomfortable conversation. Ironically, what feels easier for them often creates much more pain for the other person. Now consider another possibility. Control. Silence can become a form of power, not always consciously, but sometimes people realize something important. The person who waits often feels weaker than the person making them wait. This creates an imbalance. Suddenly, one person starts checking their phone every 10 minutes. The other continues living normally. Attention has shifted. Power has shifted. That's why some people delay replies, not because they're busy, but because they've learned that unpredictability keeps people emotionally invested. It's a psychological principle known as intermittent reinforcement. Imagine a slot machine. You don't win every time. You win occasionally. And strangely, that unpredictability makes people pull the lever even more. Human relationships can accidentally work the same way. If someone responds inconsistently, your brain often becomes even more attached because uncertainty increases anticipation. This is why inconsistent attention can sometimes feel more addictive than constant attention. Scary, isn't it? But let's be careful. Not everyone who replies slowly is manipulating you. Some people genuinely have different communication habits. One person thinks replying within an hour is respectful. Another thinks replying within 3 days is completely normal. Neither is necessarily wrong. The problem begins when expectations are never communicated. Now let's explore something even deeper. Projection. Sometimes the person ignoring you isn't rejecting you. They're rejecting something inside themselves. Imagine someone who secretly feels insecure every time they talk to someone successful, confident, or emotionally healthy. They feel uncomfortable. Instead of facing those emotions, they distance themselves, not because of who you are, but because of what you remind them of. Psychology calls this projection and emotional avoidance. We often think people react to us. In reality, they often react to the emotions we trigger trigger inside them. Here's another fascinating observation. The people who fear abandonment the most often become the first to emotionally disappear. That sounds backwards, but think about it. If someone believes they'll eventually be rejected, they may leave first. They convince themselves, if I disappear now, at least I won't be the one getting hurt later. Self-protection can look exactly like indifference. Now ask yourself something. Have you ever ignored someone, not because you hated them, but because you didn't know what to say? Maybe you forgot. Maybe life became overwhelming. Maybe you felt guilty for replying late. And the longer you waited, the harder it became to respond. This is known as the guilt cycle. One missed reply becomes two. Two become 10. Eventually, responding feels embarrassing. So silence continues again, not because you don't care, but because shame quietly takes over. This realization changes everything. Silence has many languages: stress, fear, confusion, immaturity, manipulation, exhaustion, anxiety, and yes, sometimes rejection, but not always. Here's where most people make a costly mistake. They chase explanations instead of observing patterns. One ignored message means almost nothing. A consistent pattern tells a story. Healthy relationships aren't built on decoding mysterious signals. They're built on clarity, consistency, respect. If someone repeatedly leaves you questioning your worth, the real question isn't, why are they ignoring me? It's, why am I accepting communication that constantly makes me doubt myself? That question changes your focus, because your value isn't determined by someone else's response time. Think about the people who genuinely care about you. They may be busy, they may reply late, but when they show up, you feel respected, you feel safe. You don't spend nights wondering where you stand. That's the difference between uncertainty and emotional security. So, what should you do the next time someone ignores you? Pause. Before creating a story in your head, remember that you don't know the whole picture. Observe the pattern. Communicate once if it feels appropriate. Then step back. Protect your peace instead of chasing certainty, because every minute spent begging for someone's attention is a minute you're not investing in your own life. And here's the irony. The less your happiness depends on someone else's response, the more emotionally free you become. People may ignore your messages. They may ignore your efforts. They may even ignore your presence. But never ignore your own self-respect just to be noticed by someone else. Because the people who truly value you won't make you solve the mystery of whether you matter. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is this: silence doesn't always reveal who you are. More often, it reveals who they are. And once you understand that, being ignored stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like valuable information.